So first off, I want to give a heads up that this is a conversation, right? This is a conversation that you guys have full participation in. If ever you have questions or you guys want to interrupt or just raise your hand, and all of the rest of the panelists will come in and answer your questions for you, right? We have some guided questions prepared, but we'll just let the conversation flow where it will start, where it will end, and let's see where the expertise of our incredible panel will bring us. All right? So yeah, same goes with the panelists. It's a conversation. If you want to speak, just call my attention. We'll grab the mic and we'll just share our thoughts here. All right? Yeah. So let's begin. So this is a panel about the future of Python development, right? So Python has gotten a huge boom lately. It has now surpassed JavaScript for the most used language ever. Ever since the emergence of AI and distributed technologies, right? So yeah, this is a very exciting field to be in. But the question is for the panelists here. Um, you've seen frameworks and Python tools rise and fall. If Python's next Django moment is coming, what domain do you think it'll emerge from, and who's most likely to build it? Maybe one of our open source veterans can come in.
You, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, is this on? Can you hear me? Ah. Hello? Can you hear me? It is not coming on. Okay. Hello? Okay, that's better. All right, what was can you repeat the question again? So,
Yeah, so you guys have seen frameworks rise and fall. If Python's next Django moment, the next boom in tooling is coming, what domain do you think it'll emerge from, and who's most likely to build it?
all right, so I think that moment is now. It is happening right now. It's not when will the next Django moment come. The LLM world is powered by Python, and while they may use other tools, they're very much in for front end stuff. They use a lot of React because that's what you're supposed to use. That's the convention. We'll see if we stick with it because that's an extra bit of architecture they have to worry about. I think then the real question is how do we as software developers capitalize? I mentioned Fast API because I do a lot of web development, but I think the real tool that has emerged is Pydantic. Because if you look at it on the surface, it is a validation framework. You have data coming into your system, you validate it. But people use it to define the structure of data going into LLMs. And there's also accessory libraries like Pydantic AI, which will work with any client that you have. So if you're trying to build a business-to-business thing, that's really the way to go. So I think the tool and library to really master, if you want to take advantage of it, not just as a vibe coder or something like that, but to really get into the guts of things, is learn Pydantic. Who here is using Pydantic? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. So that this number, my guess is by next year will be much higher.
Any of the panelists want to add?
Alright, so I have two answers here. First answer would be I think the next libraries that might await, I do not have a crystal ball, so I cannot see the future. You didn't know what I will make and say, hey, it's about this or wrong. But I think the next library that would move in Python ecosystem will be quantum mechanics. Maybe. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I don't have a crystal ball. The second answer that I have is very selfish of me. I would like to see more game programming libraries, but that's just me.
Yeah. So we'll be able to see another Java moment, but we need to look back several years because of we never pick up a framework just because it's cool. We pick it up because it's easier to use. And if you guys are using Django, pretty much you've chosen Django because there's already available training modules that you can pick up and you just add it into your requirements that TST and then be done with it, right? Because you need to be fast, you need to be agile, you need to be able to roll out your projects just in time. And that's where the power of open source Django is. You have to remember also that before Django existed, there were several Python-based frameworks already in existence. One of those is open, another is clone. So if you're not familiar with those things, they've been in existence for decades and decades, and they're being used in enterprise. Now, when people saw the prospect of Django, they started migrating a lot. We've been talking about this earlier. They started creating modules that are similar to the features in Zope and Clone, and then put them into Django, and then that's it. Django became widely used even in the enterprise. One tool that you might be using right now, Sentinel, is actually Django based. Another is if you are into computer vision and then annotation, you might have heard of OpenCBAC. CBAC is also based on Django. So there's a lot of really, really good tools out there that are heavily reliant on Django. So, but to answer the question, will we be able to see Django? Yes, of course. There are a lot of available tools already out there, but there are still very young tools. We have yet to see how they grow. But the most important thing is really for me, especially, I'm not a developer, I'm an infrastructure engineer, but I didn't go. So the most important thing is really ease of use. So I might be trying to be a prophet, and I'm not trying to be biased, but there's a good prospect here when you take off soon because of the ease of use and how to use here. So yeah.
Give it for air.
Yes.
All right. Any more?
By the way, tomorrow is the 24th. So if you want to be part of the Django moment, then you might want to join us and maybe help with everything. With that,
So my take here will be a bit biased towards AI because that's where I mostly work in. So in the Python space, there are actually a lot of from data to analytics to even AI, very popular tools. So probably everyone knows Pandas by now. Um, Another would be PyTorch. No? Another would be sklearn, no? Scikit-learn. Even the whole scikit stack, no? NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, no? Those that are being, I think, supported right now, Focus, are all around data. No? So most of them are largely well developed, no? And PyTorch is actually, if you're going to work in the AI space, I think Keras is gone. No, or it's not, it's not as active as PyTorch anymore. No? So PyTorch is the way if you want to learn it. But today's a lot of development has been happening uh, with the large attention of the world to LLMs. A lot of engineering work that's happening is in deployment. In engineering, making sure all of these models are being put into something that's tangible and usable by people. Uh, that is actively being developed. There's a lot of tools right now. Most of it is in LLM space, but computer vision, uh, yeah, computer vision, documents, audio, music, etc. Those are areas that are not so developed yet, no, and is in active research. Another area is also robotics. So, for example, we in LLM it's text to text, but in robotics it can be like text to action, no? Or image to action. You can go crazy, or directly audio to action. So those are a lot of areas where active research is being done, and a lot of that is anchored on Python. There's not a lot of tools developed yet, so it's opportunities that every one of you can get into.
Anyone want to add on that?
Yes, I think that the biggest breakthroughs, the next Django moments, are going to come out of the most unexpected places. So historically, like, React came out of Facebook because they were the large corporation who could afford all that development. But LLMs are the big equalizer now. So the next Django, in the next big tools that we all use are going to come from indie developers everywhere around the world. Probably a lot of us here are going to build amazing things that could surpass Django.
Right, yeah. I remember around 3 to 2 years ago, where every week there's a new JavaScript framework. I'm seeing the same thing now with agent AI frameworks.
Yes.
Yeah, and LineGraph and
There's a new
AI,
model
Gen
every day.
Yes.
4. Yeah, yeah. All right, yeah. So I think the next question here is more on the community standpoint, something that I want Miss Ella's take on. So something like this. What's one risk of Python's current direction, either technical or cultural, that no one is seriously talking about yet, and you want more attention in? Any thoughts on this, Miss Ella?
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. So in the first question, we've been talking about the trends, the next Django moment. Now let's talk about the things that the one risk that the current Python community is currently ignoring, that no one is seriously talking about yet. It can either be technical or like a cultural or community aspect of the Python community.
It's the sustainability, actually. Like starting an event, starting a meetup is easy. The passion is there. Every people is passionate about that one. But sustaining it for like 5, 10 years, 15 years, that would be a challenge. Like for everyone, every organizers can relate with that one. So when the pandemic came, like for example, previously you have a lot of communities here to engage, then pandemic happened. Then what happened to that communities? They died down. Volunteers got we lost volunteers, and then some sponsors also pull out because they don't have any funds anymore that they can share with the community, and that would a big hit to the communities as well. So without sponsors, what would you do to sustain the community itself? So yeah, that's one challenge that we're still struggling to address.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we cherry pick this group is because all of us here are like organizers in Python communities one way or another, right? So I think this whole discussion on around community building is very relevant, especially for us, right? Any thoughts?
Yes. So, what would be the danger with the Python either in the community or in the program networks? I need to address to the audience, everybody who has learned Python during the job, raise your hand.
Raise your hand, guys.
You done it during, you learned from it when you learned doing the job. Raise your hand if you learned it during fourth year of college, the last year of college. How about the third year, the second year, first year of college, high school? I believe, unfortunately, that okay, this is a biblical verse. Education, computer science, IT in the Philippines needs to level up, and they're not teaching. Okay, this is a biblical verse. It they need to level up. Education coming from somebody who came from the education sector, they need to teach the right tools. And Python is one of the most popular programming languages. And I asked my hands earlier, more hands, more people learn Python at the job and not during school, in which they're supposed to learn about this stuff. So my answer here is education has to rise up. Have to get better.
just to add to that, I went to PyCon Thailand last week, and then the whole education system there is next level. They're teaching Python in what's grade 7, the equivalent here. So that early. They know Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. They know how to make a basic full stack web app. So it's crazy.
As an incubator myself, it hurts. It hurts. If there are any teachers in the room, I know it's hard because well, you have extra work that is administrative, but we need to level up.
Any more thoughts on this?
Yeah, so my concern about the future is based
This
off of
works.
ethics that who here has seen the movie The Original Jurassic Park? Okay, good. So remember when Dr. Ian Malcolm said that, yeah, your scientists were so busy trying to figure out how to do a thing, they never thought whether or not they should do a thing. And so just because we have these amazingly powerful tools, which just thanks to AI just got much more powerful. And so the vehicle for doing wrong things has gotten much bigger and much more powerful. And so that is a concern because normally as software engineers, we're not taught ethics in software. We get that through community and stuff like that. And the hope is that translates over. That's the hope. But we have evidence now in the world that hope is not working out as well as it should. So that's my big fear about the future with tools like Python and LLMs.
Any more thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to add to really good points. Because right now, I'm pretty sure most of you already know about coding, right? Whenever I'm asked, is it with you or your project or whatever, you just fire up Copilot, you just fire up Claude, whatever LLM you're familiar with, and then describe whatever it is that you want to do. And then I'm pretty sure most of you just have to paste it and then run it, and then if there are errors, ask again, and then what happened, right? There's no more understanding of how things work underneath. When we were, like several years ago, a couple of decades ago, we were doing coding. We don't have that tool. We don't have LLMs. We go to yellow, okay? And then we go to the laboratory and we make different drugs. Now, here's the thing. We need to understand whatever it is that we're trying to do, understand what the code was generated by the LLM. The main point is understanding the most important foundational elements of building code. You do not rely exactly on what gets churned out by the LLM. The same way that when you're going to adapt a new framework to be used in your projects, you still need to understand how the framework works. And also, just because you wanted to do something and you just want to do LLMs, you just outright go and choose Python. That doesn't work that way. You still need to understand how Python really works. Beyond the syntax, you have to understand how Python does garbage collection, for example. You have to understand GIL. If you do not know what GIL is, go ahead and open your browser and take a look at Python GIL. You need to understand how to use pet or Python, right? Do you know what pet is? Do you know what Blake is? No. So these are certain tools that are foundational in Python, but a lot of us do not really pay attention to these things, which are very, very foundational in the Python programming language. And who knows, those are actually just the sources or the errors and the problems that are encountered in your code. But since we wanted to do things faster, we just go ahead and do the LLM, and then you go back and forth with the LLM. In fact, if you have the basic understanding of how the programming language works and how to use the framework, you don't really need to keep on doing back and forth with the LLM because you really understand how the things work. Most important thing is you need to understand how things work from the foundational level, and then you go from the language level, you go to the framework, and then you go to how the LLM ties it together. But the main power, one of the powers, we have to also recognize that the power of the LLM is helping us make integrations of our code easier. easier. Because the pain, a lot of the code development, the pain is really within the integrations. We try to make our code work with other pieces of code and other frameworks to make our solutions work. So just understanding how everything works.
All right. So yeah, we're about to run out of time, but before we wrap things up, I think this is a question that the majority of our audience really craves for, some career advice, right? So yeah, let's kick things off. No? So here in Davao City, which is one of the more provincial cities in the Philippines, and I think most of the people here want to upskill and connect to the global Python ecosystem without the need to relocate, right? So they want some advice, they want upskilling techniques and all of that. What's one project archetype that instantly shows you a developer understands the real world complexity of Python systems, not just tutorial level skills? Any takers?
What project?
What project archetypes that instantly shows like an employer, hiring manager, that a developer understands the real world complexity of Python systems, not just tutorial level skills?
So I don't have an easy answer for that, but what I will say is you should treat GitHub as your portfolio. And by that I mean, don't just have a few tutorial projects on there. Find a passion project and work on it over time. If I am looking at a candidate, or when I've looked at candidates and I see they have projects where code magically appears in one commit, I'm immediately suspicious. Because where did they get that from? Is that, were they allowed to take that? Did they copy it from someone else? What I'm looking for is a commit history over time, where I can see you level up over time. Anyone who's looking at someone just starting their career, who you want to work for, isn't going to look at someone who's new to coding and expect to see the best stuff. But instead, we're looking for the progression of skill over time, the ability to learn. That is what I look for. That is what a number of other people look for.
Yes, my favorite command is git brain, like you.
Oh, last question. Are we
Yeah,
done?
I just want to share that there's a keynote speaker during PyCon Japan. She did a 100-day challenge with ChatGPT. But now she wrote a book. The book is well known in Korea and also Japan. You can search Utsupa. Ami Utsupa. She wrote the book. She was invited to conferences, situations. She's a college student at the time. So she did a 100-day code challenge. So every day she posted in Twitter, in her GitHub, the same thing that every project that she accomplishes. But what is amazing is the line of codes, documentations that she did. Like for example, for a normal person, student, you just write a code, copy it in ChatGPT, and then post it somewhere to brag. Not knowing how did it came up. Like learn it from like the lines or what's the purpose of this, right? So most people use it as a test. What she did is like created documentation. She has a lot of notebooks actually. It was written. It was properly documented. Every application that she published as well. So that's why what was amazing with her, and she wrote that book. It's 100 days challenge with ChatGPT. So if you read that book, it's amazing how she did it. Like not every student is like diligent in writing anything, taking notes actually. People tend to forget taking notes actually in certain matters, but she did it, and also the main reason she did the 100 days challenge because she doesn't want to do her assignments or projects. That's why
Yeah.
she challenged
Yeah.
herself to do the 100 days challenge. So for 3 months, she launched more than like 50 or 100 applications already. So that's a start, actually. And you can just start that individually if you're bored or you have like problems, like for example, schoolwork.
Yeah.
Pretty much and then you know the foundation as well. It would also be a great portfolio in your job applications.
So I have one last thing to add. So Danny and I previously, years ago, we managed 150 engineers, and Danny was the hiring manager who hired 75 people in the span of what, 3 months? And so the big thing that stood out for us was developers who contribute to open source projects, Python projects, and who create Python packages that others use. That doing both those things shows knowledge of pull request process and collaboration, and that those two skills are absolutely essential when you're hiring. That's the edge you get. And so join sprints tomorrow, or if you didn't sign up, maybe having future sprints here could get people some of that career background.
Um, uh, Advice wise, I think what I can say is the fact that you guys are here and you really took the time to attend Python conference and listen to these folks. Um, and I'm sure you guys are taking time to learn Python. That's already a good first step. I think it's very hard to like get lost out of that. I think as just look at all the whole ecosystem, the landscape of Python, and start exploring and trying to understand in what areas you might have affinity with, like what are your interests, and see if if you can use Python, or is Python being used in that area. You are young. It's a good time to explore
Yeah.
and experiment. Right? I think that's my first advice. My second advice probably would be, I think it was mentioned already, start doing projects. So air is one. Another is so my workshop later is, of course, again, I'm biased with data. So data is everywhere. So having the skills to work with data, to read, consume, and manipulate, uh, and process. It's a skill that everyone should have. It doesn't mean that I'm telling everyone to become data scientists or data engineers or whatever. But if you're a software developer and you're really good with working with data, it's a plus point, right? It takes you everywhere. The last one is, of course, I'm going to talk about AI. AI is a tool at the end of the day. Um, there's a lot of ethics, no, discussions around it, but for me, again, it's a tool. So if you take advantage of it, no, and make sure that it's something that will really benefit you as an individual. So for example, right now I'm a student as well, so I really take advantage of using AI to um, understand things. No? So for example, I'm hearing a lot of buzzwords or jargons, I ask it, and then if I'm not sure how it was, explained to me, I Google it, whatever. So it's a far cry from what 10, 20 years ago, where we had physical encyclopedia books and we had to manually read reference books. No, today it's everything is very lightning fast. And I think the challenge there is there will be a lot more expectations from everyone because of this. But it's an opportunity for us to really step up. There are a lot of tools out there. Notebook LM is one, ChatGPT is another, Claude. No? As long as you take the time to make sure that you actually learn and you build things, you bias to building, because that's where actual real learning and experience happen. You take something, you put it out there, it breaks. The first talk of Sir Valdez, it was really good because it shows that you have the courage to get yourself out there and do something people will actually see and consume. There's a lot of learning out of that, and it makes you unique.
So I just wanted to share, just to encourage everyone, like to share or contribute as well into Python packages or Python programming itself, right? There's one that I met that he only just sent a pull request actually to the Python programming itself. Like it's just a simple tweak for the documentation, so for improvement actually. And then that was noticed by the creator itself. So then Valdigo mentored the person, and then later on became one of the core developers for the Python programming itself. So maybe by chances, like he started as a student, just checking out source code for the Python programming language and then the packages. So he just sent a pull request out of nowhere. Like he doesn't know this person, he doesn't know who created this. He knows that who created the programming language, but he was just a single person out of million who uses Python. And that was noticed by the creator itself. So he was mentored, and then later on, the skills was improved, then hired as a core developer for Python programming language. So maybe someday that will be one of you.
What I heard was start small and maybe set by the odds.
So yeah. There's also one thing that a lot of people actually that forget in terms of participating in contributing to open source projects. Because every time we say contribute to open source projects, what comes to our mind immediately is dev work. No? But Freya already mentioned one aspect, which is documentation, and it's very important, of documentation for Python project. No, not just Python projects, but open source projects in general. Require some more participation and some more work in terms of documentation. Second, that I want to bring up is also testing. A lot of projects, open source projects require a lot of testing because developers, the open source developers, cannot cover all of the possible scenarios that their projects are going to be used in. And you are the only ones who are in the best place to bring those modules, use them in certain use cases within your project that they haven't covered yet. So whenever you use modules, for example, you use air and you play around with it and you find an issue running air, then you go ahead and go to the GitHub page and then you find that issue. Every time you do that, that's already a contribution. Okay? When you test out the open source project and then you provide a scenario of an issue, how to replicate the problem, you test it out and then you find an issue on the GitHub issue tracker, that's already a contribution in itself. And then the developers can then take a look at it and make some improvements based on that bug reports that you have provided. That's another aspect of contribution for open source projects. I just want to find out. So another area, since maybe in my opinion, the question from Arnold was maybe multifaceted. No, I'm pretty sure you're familiar that Python is now very much well entrenched in the AI space because a lot of people are using Python whenever they create models, whenever they train models, they're exposed to Python now, right? But you have to understand there's a new area where Python is already playing in. You might not have understood this or have heard of this, but Python is already laying ground in the IoT space, Internet of Things space, embedded data, embedded system on chips. And who here have heard of ESP32? ESP8266. There's MicroPython embedded within the microcontroller, right? So instead of using Arduino, and then you could, in Arduino, you could EC and then you use that flasher for Arduino to flash your code into the microcontroller for Arduino. You don't need to do that on ESP32 or ESP8266 because there's already Python embedded within the circuit itself. And ESP32 is very much gaining ground right now as one of those preferred microcontrollers, not only for robotics but for sensors or whatever embedded systems you want to do. Plus, there's already, I'm pretty sure you've heard of NVIDIA Jetson Nano and others. and other embedded applications that are coming out right now with AI built in. What do you think is the code that runs built-in AI on those hardware now, microcontrollers? Those are Python-based. Okay? How do you train that? Most likely, they will be using NVIDIA Python server, NVIDIA Python to do inferencing, and at least they will be using Python approach. So, my personal take, this is a new area that you might want to play in. Outside the traditional areas like AI and web and APIs, you can start looking into doing Python on embedded and IoT systems. So there's a lot of areas that we can work on there. So that's it.
All right, and that wraps up
Take a
our
picture
panel
of us.
discussion. Again, very much
Yes,
for our
I
amazing
don't know
panels
if you
right
can.
here. So from Mark, Sir Mike, Miss Audrey, Sir Daniel, Miss Ella, and also Lee. Thank you so much, and let's have lunch.
Okay, thank you.